In this video, I'm going to walk you through how to install new fuel injectors in your 2019 or newer Hyundai Veloster N. One of the unfortunate issues with the Hyundai N vehicles is their fuel delivery system, namely the high-pressure fuel pump and injectors. Your vehicle may develop issues when tuning the vehicle or even on a stock tune. This is where upgrading the high-pressure fuel pump and injectors could be necessary. We've already upgraded the high-pressure fuel pump, but still ran into some rough idle and fuel cut issues recently, so we decided to upgrade the injectors. There are two types of injectors that you can purchase, A0 or A1. The A0 injectors flow approximately 5% more fuel, whereas the A1 injectors flow approximately 12 to 15% more fuel. We chose to go with the A1 injectors. The kit we purchased came with the injectors, clips, and washers. All parts are genuine OEM parts. I will have a link to the products and tools used for this install in the video description. To begin the process, using a 10mm socket, disconnect the negative battery terminal. Next, using a flathead screwdriver or 9mm socket, loosen the cold pipe from the throttle body. If this is the first time loosening the cold pipe, you will need to pop off the metal cover that is on the top of the worm gear screw. I found my cold pipe was held tight to the throttle body, so I had to use a long flathead screwdriver to break the seal around the throttle body. After I loosened the cold pipe, I used an air compressor to clean off the intake manifold as an extra precaution so debris would be less likely to fall into the intake valves. With the intake cleaned off, I began unplugging all the electrical wire harnesses attached to the intake manifold. There are 11 wire harnesses that must be unplugged and several wire clips that need to be popped up. You will need pliers and a flathead screwdriver for the wire clips, since they must be compressed to be removed. I used the dipstick to help hold one of the wires off to the side and out of my way. I've numbered all the wire harnesses I removed to help you follow along. After all the wire harnesses have been disconnected, you will need to unhook 4 hoses. Just like the cold pipe, you may need to use a pick or flathead screwdriver to break the hose's seal before you're able to unhook it. You'll see the first 3 hoses now, but but I forgot the fourth one until after I unscrewed the intake manifold. It is located under the intake. If you have a factory intake, you may need to remove it to gain access to this hose. Again, I've numbered the hoses for you. As I was unhooking the hoses, I decided to use Velcro wire tie to hold the wire harness up and out of the way. This made removing the intake manifold much easier. I didn't have to fight the wires or have another person hold them back for me. With the wire harnesses and hoses disconnected, you can remove the bolts and nuts holding the intake manifold in place. There are a total of 7 bolts and 2 nuts holding the intake manifold in place. 2 of the bolts hold a wire bracket in place, and 2 are below the intake manifold, securing it to a support bracket. You can remove the bolts in any order. I began on the left side of the manifold. You will need a socket wrench with a 10mm socket, a 12mm socket, and a 10-inch socket extension. When removing the bolts, I found using a magnetic extension tool was very helpful in ensuring I didn't drop any of the bolts. All of the bolts are 12mm except for the 2 bolts holding the wire harness bracket in place. After all the nuts and bolts have been removed, you can remove the intake manifold from the engine. You will pull the intake towards you, then tilt the right side down and pull the intake out to the left. When doing this, you will need to make sure the cold pipe fully detaches from the throttle body. Here's the fourth hose I spoke about earlier that's located under the air intake. With the intake manifold off, remove the foam cover from the fuel rail. As you can see, there are 4 bolts holding the fuel rail in place. Before I removed the fuel rail, I used long angled pliers to pop out the 3 plastic clips holding the injectors wire harnesses to the fuel rail. Next, I place shop towels under the fuel rail since gasoline will leak out of the fuel rail and fuel line. Using an adjustable wrench, I loosened the fuel line nut. Next, I remove the 4 12mm fuel rail bolts. Before proceeding, here's a look inside my valves. At the time of the install, the car has approximately 12,000 miles on it. Back to the fuel rail. Cut the zip tie holding the main wire harness to the fuel rail. This harness is located on the left side of the fuel rail. Unplug the harness. Pull the fuel rail off the engine. You may need to wiggle the fuel rail slightly to get it to release. Be careful, as fuel will run out of the fuel rail when removing it from the engine. Before you remove the injectors, slide out the metal clips. After the clips have been removed, pull the injectors out. They are tightly sealed, so you may need to wiggle them out of the engine. Once you've popped an injector out, you will need to detach the injector's wire harness. The wire harness has a yellow lock that must be pushed forward before you can depress the wire harness clip. I found using a small flathead screwdriver really helped to get the lock moved forward. You'll repeat this for each injector. Here are the injectors in order of how they were installed in the engine. As you can see, they are quite dirty. Before installing the new injectors, we took some alcohol and Q-tips and cleaned each injector's port. You'll need to prep the injectors before installing them into the fuel rail. Install the new washers onto each injector. The metal side should point to the bottom of the injector, while the rubber side should point to the top of the injector. I put the tip caps back on just to keep them protected until I was ready to install them into the engine. Next, take some oil and rub a small amount onto the rubber seal of each injector. Then, install the metal clip. Finally, install the injectors into the fuel rail. With all the new injectors installed into the fuel rail, you can now reinstall the fuel rail into the engine. Plug in all the injectors' wire harnesses. Make sure to push the yellow locks back into place. Remove the protective tip caps from the injectors. Push the injectors into the engine. Install the 4 bolts. Slowly tighten each bolt so that the rail evenly seals to the engine. I tightened the first bolt, then the third, then the second, and then the fourth, repeating this pattern until the rail was snug to the engine. The bolts need to be torqued between 13.7 and 17.4 pound-feet, or 18.6 to 23.5 Newton meters. The high-pressure fuel pipe nut needs to be hand-tightened. After the fuel rail bolts and nut have been properly torqued down, plug in the main wire harness and reinstall a new zip tie. Plug in the 3 wire harness plastic clips back into the fuel rail. Finally, reinstall the protective foam cover over the fuel rail. Before you reinstall the intake manifold, you'll want to rub a small amount of oil onto the seal. Depending on the mileage of your vehicle, you may want to install a new seal. We chose not to replace the seal. Reinstall the intake manifold back onto the engine. Watch the cold pipe. Try to line up the cold pipe onto the throttle body as you're getting the intake into place. Plug in the 4 hoses. Make sure you put the metal clips back into place. Check that the hoses are secured. Reinstall the intake's bolts. I began with the 2 10mm lower wire harness bracket bolts. Next, I installed the two 12mm lower support bracket bolts. I then moved on to the center intake bolt, then left nut, right nut, left bolt, right bolt. This is the same pattern the nuts and bolts should be torqued in. Before you torque the bolts, you will hand tighten them. After they've all been hand tightened into place, you will torque them to 13.7 to 17.4 pound-feet or 18.6 to 23.5 Newton meters. Now that the intake has been reinstalled, it's time to plug all the wire harnesses back in. Remember, there are 11 wire harnesses that must be plugged back in. After all the wire harnesses have been plugged in, retighten the cold pipe with either a flathead screwdriver or 9mm socket. Finally, reinstall the negative terminal onto the battery. This completes the installation process. Start the car to make sure everything is working properly. I would suggest priming the car first since there is no fuel in the injectors yet. Do this by pressing the start button twice without your foot on the brake. Wait 30 seconds, then put your foot on the brake and hit the start button again. It will take the car a few seconds to fire up. When we started the car for the first time, we immediately noticed that the car idled much better at lower RPMs. After letting the car idle for a bit, we took it for a drive. My wife commented on how the car had better throttle response with more immediacy than it had before the new injectors. All in all, we both felt like this was a worthwhile and easy upgrade. If you plan to tune your car or have issues with fuel cuts or rough idle, this upgrade is worth doing, especially in combination with a high-pressure fuel pump. Thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe for more content. It really helps the channel.